And my first broadcast was to be the 14th of August in Mullingar between the Ulster champions Monaghan and the Connacht champions Galway. And indeed, to freshen myself up on the Monaghan team, I'd gone up to see the Ulster final that was between Monaghan and Armagh, and a tough game it was too.
He came to the Ulster final, obviously to meet the people about whom he'd be speaking in the All-Ireland semi-final, which was going to be the first match that he would broadcast.
Rory Johnson of the Monaghan team admired the young O'Hehir's approach to his homework.
And I remember him quite well as a young, well-set-up young fellow. I think he had just left school. He must have been only around about 18 years of age. We were introduced to him. I little thought at that time that this person was destined to become the voice of the GAA and probably the best known voice on Radio Air into the next 40 or 50 years.
In another archive programme from the Sports Department and presented by Philip Green, Micheal O'Hehir recalled that first commentary and the encouragement he had got from Jimmy Mahon, who was the outside broadcasting engineer on that occasion.
For that first broadcast, and I have the contract still at home, I received the sum of £3 10 shillings. And that was to include my expenses to get to Mullingar. And during the match, I kept going on and on and on, as usual, talking about all the action and everything else. And my late father was sitting outside the box, and I think it took more out of him, the actual broadcast, than it did out of me. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple of aspects of that broadcast that I never forget. The technician was Jimmy Mann.
I was with him, and but halfway, or near halfway through, I think, I passed him a note. I don't know whether he has it yet or not, but it went something like this: "You're doing great," or something like that.
And I remember at half-time he sent over a little label that I have at home still, and written on it was, "Keep going the way you are, it's going fine."
But when it was over, the soul-searching began, the doubts crept in.
Coming home in the train, I was absolutely convinced that I was after making the greatest fool of myself that anybody could imagine. And I sat in the carriage with my father, and I don't know how many other people were there, but not one word would I say. And I was still convinced until I got to the corner of Ormond Road where I lived. And we had a very great friend, Tommy Riley, who, if something was good or something was right, Tommy would enthuse over it. And if something was bad or something was terrible, Tommy would knock it. Not for the sake of knocking, but for your own sake. He was probably the greatest friend that I ever had outside my own family. Tommy was at the corner to meet me and put his arms round me and say, "Well done." And the next thing, newspaper reporters started coming, and I began to think, God, it mightn't have been too bad after all.
And letters in the national press, like this one, endorsed that opinion.
Irish Independent, 17th of August, 1938. "Let me broadcast the match," said Micheal O'Hehir, and he did so in delightful fashion. He used no hackneyed phrases. He held his listeners spellbound. His history of the individual players in his preliminaries was exceptionally well done. No pauses, no corrections, no doubts. He gave his commentary with ease and versatility. His chuckling laugh at the ubiquitous Flavin, his narration of friendly handclasps of two of the players at the request of the referee, and his message to Skerries at the well-being of their own favourite Bobby Beggs added a touch of humour in keeping with his distinctly pleasing voice. He is a refreshing discovery, and I congratulate him on his success. P.J. Hayes, South Main Street, Wexford.